Hello, I'm Terry Gard, and welcome back to the Tea Time with Tech Founders, not to be confused with my other show, Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. I started the show last year because, as much as I love talking to marketers, which I still have and I still do, I felt like something was missing. I felt like the story of how the brand came to be that these marketers work on was something I really, really wanted. And I thought it was really selfish of me to want these stories all to myself. So I decided to start another podcast because it's what I do and I love it. And then I get to talk to wonderful people. This is my eighth show. I'm cruising here, the first show of 2024. And I'm so excited for Thomas Brown to be with me. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. A little bit about Thomas. He is the CEO and founder at eClaim.com. eClaim's mission is to empower the insurance industry with sophisticated and user-friendly SaaS solutions, streamlining the claims management process. Putting people first, they are dedicated to creating a positive impact on both their customers and employees by fostering an environment of accountability, innovation, and continuous improvement. I am here for all of those things as people first company myself. So yes, to that. Yes, to that. Thomas, great to
You
have
say
you.
that so much better than I ever could.
Teleprompter for the win.
There you go.
Uh, this is what you guys do. You're in terms of being an insurance company, claims company. But I want to know how you got there. Before we talk about specifically this company and how you founded it, what were you doing before eClaim?
Hmm. So, to go back a very long time, I graduated LSU with a degree in economics in 1988. And I had worked as in the food service industry as a bartender and wait staff in various capacities for a number of years through college. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. So when I got my degree, I went out and I went to work for a local restaurant chain. And within 6 months, I quickly realized there's no way in hell that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I did a lot of soul searching and interviewed with a lot of different companies while I continued to work in the food service industry to make money. And I came across an advertisement for a position called a claims adjuster, which I think I'd probably heard of maybe twice in my life when I got in a car wreck, but had no idea what it was. Decided to go for the interview, liked what I heard. They liked me. Um, started working there and immediately fell in love with what I was doing. I was like totally enthralled with it. So I know that sounds strange to a lot of people, but contrary to popular opinions, I happen to think that we work in a super, super interesting industry, and I loved everything about the job. So I worked in that position for a couple of years, and then I moved into a very similar position with another local company for a couple of years. And then I got married, moved to New Orleans, and went to work as what's called an independent adjuster and an IA firm for short. Those are the guys that contract out to the insurance companies to handle their overflow claims and specialty claims if the carrier doesn't have staff to handle it themselves. So you're actually contracted with the insurance company. And in this case, I was actually working for an IA firm who had the contract for two of the entities that I had worked for before. So it worked out really, really well. And I worked my way up through that position and stayed with that company for 8 years. And I was ultimately promoted to National Director of Claims and had opened up 8 offices in various states for that company. And then through that experience, this is about 1995. And this is really around the time where the internet, people were really just starting to use email, and the internet was this thing that people sort of heard of, but you really didn't know what to do with it. And I just saw a really big opportunity to transform the way that insurance claims were being handled via the internet. So I started working on the concept for what eventually became the first property and casualty claims management system in the cloud, which we all know now is largely referred to as software as a service, or SaaS. And here we are, what, 25 years later?
5 years later. Wow. That is astonishing. Hold on, Thomas. It seems we're having some technical difficulties in that the event on LinkedIn isn't live apparently. And I can't
Uh-oh.
check because StreamYard won't let me. But Peter Wheeler's here. It's like your ears are burning, Peter. You knew there was something wrong. Can you check to see if we're actually streaming? We are recording, so your story is definitely captured, and we will absolutely repurpose this down the road. So don't you worry, it did not go to waste.
And I don't have
And
to
you're
say that
sounding,
again.
and you don't have to say it again. So Peter, what do I need to do? Oh, it's live. Greg Jackson, hello. We are just refresh. Okay. We got people.
Yep,
Oh, this
keep
is
going.
great.
You're all right.
We're good. We're good. Okay. Thank you all so much for chiming in. Let us know that we're good. I appreciate you all. Wonderful. We got Derek chatting here. We got William Brown, Jim West, Greg Jackson. Look at us go. Look at you go, Thomas. This is great. Okay. All right. We are going to keep on going. So that's your story. Thank you so much for sharing about how you got into the insurance business, because it sounds like that was really the heart of where the click claim e-claim business started and took off. So tell me, for that, where was that moment for you where you felt like, I need to do this thing, I need to build my own, there's a problem here? Like, do you
Yeah,
remember the moment?
I do, and it's funny. I think every founder would say that there is that moment. And I think for me, there were two moments. One of them was when, as I mentioned earlier, and I know that the guests might have missed some of the intro, but I was responsible for opening up many sort of satellite offices for the IA firm that I was running at the time. And I would go, I would visit those satellite offices whenever there was what we called a micro cat event, which was basically defined as anything that had up to 2,500 claims. And so I would go there. We would bring in people, and we would change the operations up and shift from a daily operation to a mini cat operation. And at the time, remember, this is back in the 90s, early 90s to mid 90s. So we were getting claim assignments via fax, right? That's a facsimile machine for
Oh
anybody who
my
doesn't
God.
understand. It's a
Wait,
piece of paper that comes across a machine on a phone line. And it was horrifically slow. And the customers would call and complain, why we had multiple fax machines and they were all busy. And so I was like, this is not an effective way to do it. And at the time we were still getting assignments via mail, right? People were just starting to send them via email. That was actually a new thing at the time, but it was tremendously ineffective. So that was kind of part number one that made me start thinking, well, why is this happening? And then, the funny part about it is I went to a PLRB conference in New Orleans. And for those that don't know, the Property Research Loss Bureau, or Loss Research Bureau, sorry, is one of the most well-regarded and largest events in our industry. And the keynote that year began to talk about this thing called the internet. It's largely like people are talking about AI right now, right? So we get it, we know it's there, we have an idea what to do with it, but we really haven't formulated an understanding of how it's going to make our business better and what it's going to do. But I heard him talk about that, and I started thinking about the incident with all the claims coming across the fax, and I go, I think there's something here. I think there's a better way that we're going to transform the industry, and we're going to stop using fax machines for the receipt of new claims. And at that point, that's really when the light bulb went off, and I started working toward a solution that would utilize the internet to revolutionize really the way that we handle property and casualty claims. That was
I think
1995, to put a date on it.
Yes, I think that's important, because if I remember rightly of what comes next, the date, the timing of this matters. In terms of I mean, I love when that's the power of speakers and keynotes and events, right? And I love that events are coming back. I'm so excited for that. And people are going and having these wonderful in-person experiences. And this is a prime example of what those events can really do in terms of sparking that aha moment. As to your point of what AI is doing for all of us right now, it so how did you get started? So you have this idea, you're okay, we need to take claims online and stop with this fax machine business. So what was that? Did you just sit down and start coding? Did you pull in some other people? What was that first thing to start moving the needle, get it going?
So I'm not a coder. I'm not a technical founder. I'm an insurance claims guy. And I still think of myself as an insurance claims guy today, even though I haven't handled a claim file in 25 years. I'm truly an insurance claims guy through and through. Now, I've run a tech company for 25 years, so I kind of know what I'm doing, but I still don't code. But back in the day, there were certain skills, technical skills that I did learn to become technically proficient at certain things, and I'll get to that in a second, but it wasn't coding the application. So I had convinced my employer at the time that this was the future, and began working with my employer toward construction, building, creation of a claims management system, and did that for a few years before I ended up leaving there. I realized through that process that this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it for the rest of my life, and I wanted to blow it up, and I wanted to bring it to the masses. And that was at odds with what my employer wanted to do. Initially, it wasn't. We had an agreement to where, I don't know how deep I want to go into this. We had an agreement to where we were going to do a joint venture together, and I was going to lead that product, and they were going to be an investor in it. And it didn't work out. If you want to hear the story behind why it didn't work out, it's kind of a funny story. I'm happy to share it. But at the end of the day, I ended up getting fired. The short story is they wanted to be the major owner in the company, and that's not what I wanted to do. So they ended up firing me, and I would probably say that a lot of founders end up starting their company that way. But for me, it was absolutely out of necessity. I didn't have a bunch of money saved up. I didn't have co-founders. I didn't have investors. So, at that point in time, I was just, I've got to make this thing work. So it took about 5 years after that point for us to actually bring our first customer online. And in that period of time, we ended up doing a bunch of things. Fortunately, I had a sidekick with me. She may be listening here. She still works for me today. Nikki Wilson, she was the original developer of the application, but Nikki and I, we didn't have the capacity, the resources, the money to build this application out of the gate. So we knew that we had a goal in mind. We needed money. We needed capacity. So we began to do things that she and I knew how to do, which was we built websites. We built an industry portal where we sold things. We had related sites where we promoted other websites. Way back then, the Google Dance was a real thing, and who you could get linked on your site was a real thing, and getting your website optimized for Google. So we studied and learned search engine optimization. That's one of the things that we both became very good at. That's the technical part that I'll tell you about. I did learn to do a little bit of HTML, but I really learned about, organically growing websites for marketing, and we were really good at it. Like, we were number one on Google for anything related to the industry we were in, insurance claims adjusting, whatever. We were like number one on page one of Google, which was phenomenal. And so that, oddly enough, ended up culminating in a direction that we went into, which was totally unexpected. I was doing a presentation actually one time for a local tech a tech group, the Louisiana Technology Council, and I was telling them kind of the same story. Someone in the audience happened to be a state manager for a large telco. And he's like, why don't you develop a website to sell these mobile products, mobile phones? And at the time, people were using hotspots. So we made the connection of selling those hotspots for adjusters when they were out on a catastrophe and there wasn't the availability, the widespread availability of Wi-Fi and cellular like there is today. So we took the angle of, okay, well, we're going to sell these mobile hotspots to adjusters, and that business really exploded. I mean, we did really, really well in a very short period of time, so much so that the parent telco company said, you can't do that anymore. You're selling more of our product than we are on our company product. So I got fired again, basically. So I guess I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, it's really that type of decision that led me, okay, well, what's next and what are you going to do? And I think by that point we had made some money, and we began developing the current iteration of the early iteration, the first iteration of ClickClaims.com, which is our flagship product. And we launched our first client on that in 2004, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So you got a little money from building up this other product. You took what you and Nikki. So first of all, let's back up to Nikki, because she's an important piece to this whole puzzle for you in the beginning up until now even. How did you know Nikki? How did you guys meet?
Nikki was working for, as I recall, she was working for a tech company that was owned by a friend of mine. And when we began working to develop the claims management system for the IA firm that I was working for at the time, we decided to use that tech company to build the first version of the CMS that we worked on there. And I believe she was the original developer there, her and a couple of other folks. So I'm not sure that I didn't know Nikki before that, but anyway, I know that we worked together on that project there. And then, when I left my current employer, I think she left hers and we set off to do this thing together.
Scooped her up. If you want to know more about Nikki's story, it's a fantastic one. And she was on my Tea Time show a few years ago. And I will drop that link in the show notes after, because it's a wonderful story of her and her marketing, how she started off as a woman developer and then made her way into marketing and to what she's doing now. It's fantastic. Back to you, Thomas. Okay, so you and Nikki, you started this product. You brought your skills together and decided that while you want to do this e-claims thing, you don't quite have what you need yet, and you need some cash. So you built this other product. You made some money. You took that money, and then did you bring on more developers? What was that? I feel like we sort of skipped a step and okay, now you have a product and you're bringing
we eventually did. And, it is an important part of this because, the type of development that we do and the size of the application that we're building is, it's an expensive undertaking. And it takes a lot of resources and it's a lot of trial and error. And if you think back at the time where we were today it's pretty simple to start, even an enterprise application, even an enterprise SaaS. I mean, there's low code, there's no code. We didn't have any of that. And I'll tell you a really quick story to have some of your listeners understand how difficult things were in the very early days. After I got fired, I was working out of my house, and I had dial-up at my house. So imagine trying to start this company on dial-up, right? With
yeah.
So AT&T decided that they were going to lay some copper or the DSL into my neighborhood, and it was like, woohoo!
Sign me up.
I had to hire another guy that was working at the company that Nikki came from. And I remember being in my house with him for hours and hours and hours and hours. And I finally had to buy him a $50 tray of sushi to have him stay there anymore to get this DSL connection working for me. And that's just sort of like a pivotal moment that I remember. I mean, it was 25 years ago, and I still remember that because I was like, um, blackmailing this guy with a plate of sushi to please stay at my house so I can get some faster internet so we can go and do this thing. I forget what your question was, but somehow it tied into to that
Yeah, early days.
minute I wanted to remember. But yeah, so no, Nikki and I worked on it together for probably a few years, and we did that um, with a subject matter expert who paid for some of the development. It was another IA firm out of Florida.
Okay.
And so he funded some of that. He gave some of the requirements for that. And that was actually the first customer that we launched on that thing. And we launched it just in time. And I believe it was what they call the big four hurricanes that hit Florida. And he was an IA firm. He was a catastrophe firm. He had contracts with a lot of the carriers in Florida, and he actually had a huge business. And he was the guy that we took live on the application first. And so if you want to give some perspective on the way that things were at the time, when those storms began to happen, I felt like it was important for me to be there on scene and watch the operations and see how people interacted with the application. So I remember gassing up my pickup truck and driving from my house to his house, which is around Destin, Florida. It was about a 4 or 5 hour trip. And I got there and I realized that this guy was running his IA firm out of his music studio, which was about the size of this office, which is, less than 200 square feet. And he was doing a lot of business. And he had like 12 people in there and 2 copy machines and a big dog. And I was, it's those sort of things that stick out in your mind. And I remember I had to help him put office furniture together to accommodate the influx of people that he had there. And I slept on the floor of his fifth wheel that night, and that big dog was licking my face all night. So, when you think about the things that we went through in the very early days, just because you knew that you had to make this thing work, it's those kind of memories that I'll never forget. So he was the first client on this thing. And the other big event that happened after that was obviously Hurricane Katrina that hit, in the New Orleans area where we both live in 2005, totally destroyed all of the infrastructure here. So, thankfully we were smart enough to never have hosted the system here. And we got out of town way in advance of that event. So not only did it not impact our operations, but it was a very a key turn of events for us, because that's when the application really got traction. And we had clients that I think they knew about us. They had heard about us. They were maybe on the fence, maybe some people that we had told about the application. And when Katrina happened, they're like, okay, we need your application. So it was a really good time for us. We picked up a bunch of clients and we made a bunch of money. And that kind of changed the dynamic of the company. And we realized, hey, we're onto something here. We have product market fit. We know the ideal customer profile. We have our pricing metrics right to where we know how to make money on this thing. Let's roll ahead and throw some gas on it. And we grew from there at a pretty rapid pace.
I remember the Katrina story vividly because I remember hearing it the first time from Nikki, where she was talking about being in the backseat of her car trying to code the product as y'all were evacuating. So it's one of those stories that really, like, one of those startup stories that really sits with you. It's all these wonderful stories that you're telling about the sushi for the DSL, from the pickup truck and the big dog, right? These are the stories of the moments of how companies get started that I've so been yearning for. So thank you, Thomas, for fulfilling my dreams here. you have a product, you have clients, you're up and running. So that's your startup story. Where are you now in terms of we're fast forwarding. I know there's probably a million things that have happened between now and in the last 23
Yeah.
years, but what has been the evolution of the business?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously we get to here. I could tell you stories for 3 days, a lot of funny stories like that. But I won't get too bogged down in that. But I think to track the evolution of the company, we pulled away from all the other things that we had done in the past, and we focused solely on making ClickClaims our flagship product. We knew that was the future of the company, and we knew that we were on to something. So fast forward probably 3 or 4 years, and one of our larger IA firm clients in Florida began telling us that their largest carrier client, who, part of our application is, if you're an IA firm, we have what's called a carrier view. So the carrier can come in and they can create claims, they can update claims, get statuses and all that, which nobody really even had that at the time. It was all being done again by fax or by telephone or whatever. So by having that exposure to the carrier, that carrier came to us and said, "Hey, look, you've got way better technology than what we have. Can do you have a version of this that would work for us as a carrier?" So we really didn't. And we realized, hey, that's an opportunity for us to move up the food chain, so to speak. So at the time, we decided to rewrite the entire application from the ground up, and we would take a new focus on making it suitable for carriers. That turned out to be a very good decision, because what happened in the independent adjuster world in the next 10 years is that there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of companies that just couldn't make it. There was technology displacement, consolidation, M&A, a period of low activity by Mother Nature. So for all of those reasons, the client base on the IA side, there was a lot of change in the marketplace. Fortunately, we had pivoted to the carrier market by that time. Now, we still have a lot of IA firm clients today, but our focus is in the carrier market. Our niche is in the coastal plains, where these carriers are subject to natural weather events that drive a tremendous influx of claims. And so we had, because of my background and because of the fact that I worked in a catastrophe company, I really understood that. And, the memory of me hovering over that fax machine and saying a prayer that it would speed up is sort of the impetus for me saying, hey, we have to make this thing super fast. Because when volumes surge, you can't handle claims the way that you do when they're regular daily claims. You don't have the resources, you don't have the infrastructure. The demands from the insureds are multiplied at 10,000%. Your systems have to be capable of handling a sudden surge in events in volume. So, we designed the application to not only handle that type of added capacity, but to do things that were gonna, number one, eliminate a lot of the manual and redundant tasks that the adjusters were doing. So we set up a lot of automation. We gave them tools that they desperately needed, that they were using in various other areas, like Google Maps and emails and directions and document management. We put all those things into a singular application, so everything was done in a central location, and most of it was automated. So there was a huge increase in efficiency of what the adjusters were using, and that was true of both the IAs and the carriers. So that's how we got into the carrier market. We then had
Hold on, let's pause
Sure.
there for a second, Thomas, because I feel like this is so critical for so many companies where they're at this crossroads. And it doesn't always come to fruition. I feel like you took a leap of faith to switch gears and it panned out for you. What were you sort of mentioned it, but I just want to double down a little bit, because you sort of saw into the future. Did you see into the future, or is this all in hindsight of like, well, thank goodness we made this change, because then these things happen? Or were you like, these things are going to happen, so we need to make this this change?
I think it's the latter. I think it's because of the experience that I had in the industry that I knew where the industry was going, and I understood at a very, very deep level what the industry needed. And I think that's the benefit of a subject matter expertise founder versus a technical founder. As a technical founder, you rely on somebody for the subject matter expertise, whereas I brought the subject matter expertise to the table. Now, it's a double-edged sword because as a technical founder, I struggled with a lot of those issues. But for me, yeah, I have always been someone who looks at everything, to a fault. I look at everything as why is it this way and how can I make it better and why aren't they doing things this way? So I hyper analyze and hyper focus on efficiency. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's maybe one of my magic powers as a founder is I look at things and I just have an eye for making it better and improving it. And I think a lot of those things, I mean, sure, we've made mistakes and some of those things haven't come out exactly as we thought. But, the other part of the story is, we're not a VC funded company, so we can't make huge mistakes. So we have to be somewhat conservative and we have to go through the thought process of not being speculative about building something that's not going to work. If it doesn't work, there's a pretty big price to pay. So we're very judicious about the things that we decide to build. And I think we know who we are. We don't want to be everything to everybody. We focus in the niche, and the niche that we're in is a pretty large niche. Mm-hmm. So I think that's been sort of the successful things. And for a while, we built a maritime application for a top 10 insurance carrier. We built a flavor of our claims management system that included evidence tracking for a quasi-governmental agency for food product claims, which was super cool and super fun to build, but it's also not something that you can sell to a bunch of people. So we realized real quick, hey, we need to stay in our lane because as I say, as you make money off of repeat business, right? And anytime you go and you deviate and you try to do this and you try to do that, not only is there's risk that you're going to go into something that's not going to make it, but it's not repeatable. You can't go out and sell 10 of those things. Mm-hmm. So, that was a lesson that we learned. And I think that's a guiding principle of the company today.
I think that's so important. You wear your marketer hat there, Thomas, in terms of your audience and repeatable customers and a repeatable business and staying in your lane. I think so many times we get caught up as founders of what more can this thing do? And what's the shiny object over here? And we want to stay. And we would, it'd be more fun to go do something new than it would be to double down on what we already know, what we're already doing. Yeah, and so good for you for coming back to center and saying, this is who we need to service.
I wouldn't say good for me. I would say good for my employees for taking my easy button away because as a very creative person, that's my tendency. I want to go do it all. And I like that's what I like, right? I love creating and building and coming up with ideas. But I think I've learned through the years that, let it regurgitate for a little while, sleep on it for a week, and then maybe present it to your buffers and see what they say. And, thankfully, probably 90% of the time they say, Thomas, stop. And they put the rails on me.
My business partner, being more in that visionary seat and that forward-thinking person too, has the tendency to have all these wonderful ideas, and I don't ever want to kibosh them or say no. So I always am more of that. I'll take that in consideration, and then I sort of backlog it, and then when a moment sort of arises, I'm like, okay, that idea you had 6 months ago, I can see how we can make that happen now. And so, because I think it's so important to have somebody who even 90% of your ideas are going to get shot down, there's those few nuggets that are going to stick around, and your team's going to see those. So keep bringing the ideas, Thomas. Don't stop, and your team will let you know what's going to make sense. And I also love that you are I listened to this podcast called Pivot with Scott Galloway, who is a marketer and business owner and brand builder. And one of the things he always says about founders is to have like a cabinet of people that are your go-to
Mhm.
people who are going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, what to do, what not to do, and they're going to be honest with you, right? So, having those cabinet members like you do, I think is so critical to every founder, and somebody to bounce your ideas off before, like you said, you gotta mull it over, you gotta sleep on it, then you gotta go, pass it around your cabinet and say, what do you think? Am I onto something, or should I just put that on the shelf for
Yeah.
now? Right. So yeah. So yes to that. I am totally in agreement. Um, let's talk about marketing for a second, because I'm a marketer and I can't help myself. When was the point where you felt like, okay, I feel like it's so often that people wait till they have a product, and maybe you did, and that's okay too, but you sort of wait till you have a product and you go, okay, I have a thing. Now I got to go get it in front of people. Where was that moment for you where you felt like, okay, I need to start shopping this around and I need to start sort of marketing this to the right folks?
There's a whole bunch of flavors to that question. I would say that very early on, we understood that to be successful selling on the internet, there was a phrase about content is king, which is still true today. There were the Google Analytics, the SEO, the search engine marketing where you paid. And then I think when we got the opportunity with the telco and we had the money, we spent a lot of money buying ads and experimenting with different ads to see what people were actually going to do and what was going to generate the clicks. And then we developed a very sophisticated methodology of tracking those clicks on all of those ads and from where they came and what regions and what words and what price. And we analyzed all that stuff, and we had a very methodical process about it, that at the end of the day, did it produce a sale? Did it create a call to action? Did that customer churn? And what that allowed us to do is understand the very niche subset of all of these experiments and boil those down into the ones that we could highly optimize and get the website focused on the SEO side of it, so we could build it organically to where we didn't have to pay for those ads anymore. And I would say having learned that was a tremendous breakthrough for the company. And there's still a lot of secrets in that today that I'm not going to talk about, because we're about to bring them back to market today and go full circle with it. But we were doing things that I don't think many people understood how to do back then, and probably don't understand how to do today. And I think that is a key. I still think a huge part of our success is being a marketing company. So, we go to some trade shows every now and then. We've done a very tiny bit of print advertising, and we did it for extremely strategic reasons, which are not what you would think. Word of mouth has been fantastic. So, our core value number one is people, both internally, our employees, and externally, our customers. So we're fanatical about customer service. If you can sustain your brand identity over a long period of time, which we have, our NPS is outrageous. It's like in the 80s, which for a typical SaaS company is like in the 30s. It's really, really hard to get that high, and it's even harder to stay that high. And we've done that. So I think that's a guiding principle number one. But at the end of the day, if you can get people in the marketplace to talk good about you and to spread the word, then, you don't have to do a whole bunch of outbound. And so that's been part of the secret of our success, is we haven't had to spend a ton of money on sales and marketing. Now, I will say, if we have time here, that we're about to launch the property and casualty, to my knowledge, first product. That's what's known. I know you know what PLG is. The audience may not know. It's product-led growth.
Okay.
And with a product-led growth, approach to sales is you have an item that you put out on the internet, and there are characteristics of the way that you promote that product and the way that that product exists on the internet itself, to where it essentially sells itself, right? So if you think about the things that we do today with this huge enterprise application that we have, it's a slow sales cycle. It's a slow onboarding cycle. I mean, it may take a year, may take 18 months from the point of, hey, we have a lead, let's qualify it, all the way until that customer is live and getting value from the service. It can be a very long period of time. And for a small company, we're still a 20-person company. That's a long time, right? So we said, okay, well, how can we counterbalance that with something that we can have repeat sales? So we took a tiny slice of the services we provide today, and we built a PLG product around it. It's taken 2 years. It's coming to market later this year. I'm super, super excited about it. And the cool thing about it is we're going to go full circle, because now we get to use our SEO expertise again to hopefully bring that product-led growth market to the property and casualty space. And I'm super excited about it. Now, I hope I'm right about it. I think I'm right, and we'll find out soon.
That's so exciting. To how many products do you have now? 2, 3?
Well, no, so we went from probably, and if you include the e-commerce, we were selling a bunch of products through a single portal site. And then we had a suite of 5 products at the time. And when we began with Click Claims, that took all of our time. So we stopped everything else, focused on Click Claims. That's been the flagship product. That brand in and of itself is a singular product, but we now have the IA version, the independent adjuster version of Click Claims. We have the carrier version. We have a vehicle version. We're about to launch a TPA version. So, you could look at that as a single product, or you could look at it as 4 sort of sub products. And then I'm not going to say the name of it here yet, because I don't want to publicly state it yet, but that PLG product, it'll effectively be our second. And then we have a third product that's coming to market after we get the PLG, probably 3 to 6 months after that. We're ready to go to market on another product. And then we have a product pipeline of probably 3 to 4 more that are various levels of development. So I think we're at a pivotal point right now where, businesses grow, you don't grow like this, and very few grow with that hypothetical hockey stick. The truth is, they ebb and flow, and hopefully they end up higher. But that's been the story of our business is, we have success. And when we feel confident with what we're doing at that level of success, we say, okay, let's take on something new and let's go build that. And we did that about 3 years ago with these products we've been working on for the last couple of years. And so we're really optimistic about the next couple of years with the company. So
I can feel it. Yeah.
To your question, and so today you would say that we're still a one-trick pony. 2 years from now, we'll have 3 products. I would say 5 years from now, we'll be probably into 5, 6 products.
And they're all connected and they all relate, or are they in different? You're going to stay in your quote unquote, as you said, you're stay in your lane. Is that still the mission?
They're all in the property casualty insurance claim space. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of improvement. I still think with as much as technology has done to improve the way that we're handling claims, I still think we're doing a terrible job, just to be honest. I don't think that a lot of the technology that we have is cool, but it's not being applied in ways that have served the customer, the homeowner, the policyholder. They're still, if you look at the NPS of the insured industry, it's not very good. People don't have a high opinion of insurance. And, I'm about changing that. So we're small, but I think we're going to have an outsized impact on the industry. I think we already have, and I think we'll continue to do that as we grow and add new products.
That's so exciting. Oh, I could talk about this all day. In terms of I want to go back to real quick, and maybe I'll have you back on my marketing show because clearly you got marketing in your blood as well. Um, there's something you said around the SEO and digital ads piece that's unusual. And we're talking to founders who are probably thinking about marketing and how they're going to market their products. And so I want to talk about what you did with intention and thoughtfulness, because digital ads can absolutely be, as you know, a complete money pit. So the minute you think that you have a product you need to start selling, I don't think that either of us are advocating for you to go show up on Google and start spending a ton of money. Now, the way you did it with this incredible intention is really insightful. So I just want to double back on that for a second, because was it just paid search that you focused on?
Hmm.
Yeah. And you sort of had like an ideal keyword list where you're like, I think this is where we need to sit. And you sort of put the
I
keyword.
would
I know
say
you don't want
that
to give away the secret sauce. I just want to make sure people are aware, like, please don't just show up on Google and start spending money.
the money that we spent on ads did not generate enough revenue to even generate it, right? So the customer acquisition cost through the pay-per-click was negative. So had we kept doing that, we'd have gone out of business. But we didn't do it to generate new business. We did it to learn what worked and how to get these eyeballs and which words were going to cause what consumer behaviors. Because we ultimately knew, hey, we can't spend enough money on it. We'll spend our way into bankruptcy, but let's learn from what we pay and the information and the evidence that comes out of those paid listings. Let's see what works if we pay for it. And then let's go take that and figure out how to optimize our website to do the same thing without paying for it. And it cost a lot of money and it took a long time, but at the end of the day, it was an absolute grand slam.
I imagine,
learn.
I imagine that it's made your SEO go faster. So if your SEO does take a long time, it takes months and a lot of iteration, like you're saying. But if you use digital ads to do the learning for you, you're going to spend money up front, but your SEO is going to work faster for you, which is an amazing strategy if you can do it.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things that I remember out of that is the more we focused on free, because the company that we were selling for at the time did run specials where you could get the product for quote unquote free. Now it was a subscription cost, but when we would advertise for free, we got a ton of business. 95% of it churned right before the deadline to start paying for the subscription. So, you know, we knew, you know, we can get all the business we want selling to the people who are willing to do it for free, but we didn't get our spiff on anything that churned before the subscription period. So we don't do anything for free, right? It produces a false sense of security and a false sense of business. But that's one example of things that we learned.
I think that's important though, because when we're talking about PLG, product-led growth, a lot of the notion comes back to starting with a free product. And it sounds like you're not going to do that with this new one then.
No, absolutely not. No.
So is it like a nominal cost? Is it an entry fee sort of thing?
We are going to offer I think it's a free 2-week or free 30-day limited trial so that people can come in and they don't have to pay anything and there's no obligation and they can understand what this product is. And again, I think we're doing it in such a way to where it's going to be a no-brainer. I mean, we already know that there's a huge need for this in the industry and we already meet that need, but the way we do it today, we can only do it for our existing large enterprise clients. With the PLG product that's coming out, we've developed it to where it's mobile first, it's API first, it works for anybody, it's self-service. Is, you know, you can literally register, pay, and be live with it in a matter of hours. And there's nothing else like that out there.
For this company, for this industry.
Like I said, it took us 2 years to get to that point. We're still not 100% there yet, but But
That's right.
we
Okay.
believe that when we do go live with this thing, it's going to take off and it's going to present the industry with something they've never had before.
Yeah. It's
So yeah,
exciting.
we're super excited about it.
Well, I'm going to be paying attention because I want to see where this goes, Thomas. You've been doing this business for 23 years. That's an amazing, amazing feat to ride all those storms, as you mentioned, both literally and figuratively. For those who are maybe just starting a business or maybe they're in it for the last 5 years, especially these last few years, we've all been through the COVID storm in terms of our businesses and how that's ebbed and flowed. What do you say to those folks who are at a point of like, do I keep going or do I call it a day? Like they might probably feel a little tired right now. I'm sure you've been there. What do you say to those folks to say, you got this? And I did it for 23 years and here's how I weathered those storms.
I mean, to me, if you're in it for the right reason, then, stay in it until you absolutely can't anymore. And I've been at that spot many, many times. A lot of times, most founders go through that. You get burnt out, you get discouraged, you don't know where the next funds are going to come from. But I think if you're in it for the right reason, which for me, it's never been about the money, it's been about changing the industry and wanting to deliver a product that was truly going to be impactful on people's lives. And that's still how I operate today. And so I think it's those things that have kept me going through the tough times. And I tell you, every time that I faced one of those perceived existential threats, I found a way to get through it. And once you get through it, you build a muscle memory, you build calluses, you get tougher. And there were times where I literally, my wife will tell you, I cried myself to sleep at night and didn't think that I had a way out of this hole that I'm in. And you get through it, but I'll tell you, it is freaking tough. And so if you're really in it and you're in it for the right reasons, then you'll make it through those times and you'll look back on those as a learning lesson. I think, unfortunately, in the last 5 years, there's been a whole lot of people who've come into tech and come into SaaS, and they've been driven by VC money and they want to be the next unicorn and they want to go public and all this kind of stuff. And, it's like being in a casino and somebody's slot machine goes off and jingles and everybody says, oh, I can do that. It's such a small percentage of people that are successful when they go the big money route. And so I'm in a group called Practical Founders. It keeps me grounded. I'm bootstrapped. I own 100% of the company. I'm announcing tomorrow, no, 2 hours from now, to the employees. I'm actually giving 20% of the equity in the company to our employees. But I don't have any outside investors that influence the way that we run the company. I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm in it for me. A lot of it is personal challenge. Can Thomas do this? Can he get through it? Is he really going to be able to execute on what he does? I mean, those are the things that keep me going. It's not about the money. And, at the end of the day, we are a business. We're self-funded. So we know we have to make the money.
Yeah,
And I'm not
absolutely.
spending somebody else's money. So it is a different dynamic when you're a founder who's taken VC money, because you're really beholden to those guys. And those guys are going to say, go out and sell and grow at all costs. And if you have to do that, you better be able to do it. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. And most don't.
I do need to let you know, Thomas, that we are live. So if any of your employees are listening, I think you just gave them the best
Wait, this is
news
live?
ever. It is live.
I know. They know. They know it's coming.
Okay. Wonderful.
I actually announced it at Christmas last year, and we just make
Oh,
it an
there you
official
go.
in 2 hours. We had to go through the lawyers.
Oh, they just make yeah. But yes, that is amazing. To bring your team into it and make them part of the process and give back to them, I think is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, I
I
mean,
love those programs. I think they're
they got me
amazing.
here. They got us here.
Thomas, I'm so grateful for this conversation. You're more than a founder. You got a lot going on. In the last few years, given COVID and the times of the world, I know that being a founder and entrepreneur, it takes up a lot of our time and mental space, but it But what else is new for you in this new world order? Have you picked up any new hobbies? Do you travel more? Are you spending time with your family? What's sort of been new for you personally?
The dynamic of not working in the same room with our team day in and day out. I'm very much an in-person person. I like to do things, especially difficult things, when I'm in the same room with the person. So that is very challenging for me. The flip side of that is we've been able to pick up some talent that, I'm in New Orleans. New Orleans is way better technology than what it was 5 or 10 years ago, but we're not a big tech hub. So there's a limited number of resources locally. And so, I looked at it as, if people are going to work from home, then home can be South Korea or Vietnam or, 5 hours from here. So, if they're not working in the office, then, we can go out, we can cherry pick people that are super talented, and even people that have experience in our industry, with the understanding that they don't need to be in this office. So, there is a good side to it, I guess. But to be honest with you, if you want to know how Thomas feels about it, I hate it. I hate it.
That's a big shift. It's a big change. Yeah, it's hard. My business partner and I were just talking about the need for more in person. Like, even though we've been a remote company forever, um, we always tried to get together multiple times throughout the year. And then when COVID hit, obviously it didn't happen, and then it was less. And now we're starting to get back into it. And you can feel the energy from getting in the same room with people, and how that fuels you till the next interaction. So totally agree. It doesn't replace the in person. You still need that into some
Yeah.
regard. So I hear you. Struggles
Yeah.
real.
So I think we've had to learn as a company, how to navigate that, or, thread that needle. And the interesting thing is, what I've learned is, a lot of people like it that way. They don't really like the in person. They don't want to come in. They prefer to stay home, and that's okay. And I'm not saying that any of this is good or bad in general. I'm just saying, for Thomas personally, I like, for the person that I want to be able to explain my vision and get into the very granular details of, this is how this works and these are how the workflows need to be. It's much easier for me to do that in the same room. But I get it. I get the whole commute thing, and we've adopted a hybrid policy for the people that are, local. Even if someone lives 2 minutes from the office, they come into the office, I think, 3 days a week now.
That's great. That's great
So
that
we're
people can choose their own adventure. I think that's really what
Yeah.
needs to shift to. Yeah, wonderful. Well, Thomas, how can people find you? Where's the best place to learn more about eclaim.com? Is it it's e-claim, right?
Yeah,
Dot com?
E hyphen claim, and there is no S on claim, it's singular. Um, e-claim.com is the best way to find out about the company. Um, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I actually am starting my own podcast this month.
Awesome.
It's called Claims Casting with Thomas. And so we'll talk about all things insurance claims, business, and technology. So it's going to be a really good blend, and a whole lot of comedy in it. I am a fun guy, I think. Maybe,
Well, we'll have to
in
wait
my
and see.
at this point in my life, I don't care. I like to have fun, so I'm going to try to have fun. And if you don't like it, go find another podcast. But we're going to make this one fun.
I love
Um,
it.
and I am almost about to share the intro for the thing. And I think if you're going to know in the first 15 seconds if this is the right podcast for you or not. You're going to get a real flavor for who Thomas is.
Amazing. So everybody head on over to Thomas's profile. Make sure you're connected if you're not, and then wait for that video to drop. We're all on the edge of our seats. Thomas, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode was brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps cybersecurity and complex brands get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you're a founder and you'd like to come tell your story, I would be honored to hear it. DM me. Let's hang out. Thank you again, Thomas.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Bye, guys.